Alright, so to start off, PO2 Harris walks up to Simon Jaswick with the intention of reprimanding him because he is Polish. Ensis Lukum has no watch, making sure everything is in order.
Yo, Steven Jaswick, what's up? You Dracula, you just look like Dracula. It scares me, man. You all use Slavs. They all look the same. It's cool. I mean, sir. Hey, sir, you want to hear a joke?
It was a joke.
How do you sink a Polish battleship?
Oh.
Put it in the water. Want to hear another joke?
Yeah, sure.
Poland.
Why are you doing this?
What's wrong with Slav?
What's wrong with that?
It's terrible. Come on.
It's not a good joke.
You should feel bad about yourself. You're just a sissy.
You're good now.
Alrighty, so this is verbal harassment. Can anyone here tell me what that means to you? Or how would you define it? Anyone? There's like 70. Seriously.
Make someone feel degraded about some aspect of themselves.
Anyone else?
Publicly humiliating someone.
Alright, so the way we define it is a negative defining statement told to the victim or about the victim. Verbal abuse is the use of words to cause harm to the person being spoken to.
Okay, so if I was a leading chief petty officer, or I was a division officer, what would I actually should do rather than join in with it? What actually should I do in that situation compared to going along with the jokes?
Probably should have shut it down.
Okay, what else?
Probably. Definitely, I should.
How should he have shut it down? Like, obviously, he should have shut it down, but what can, as an answer, what can you do to shut it down?
Before Harris would have made jokes and you see what's going on, you can just pull him to the side and talk to him and say things that aren't like appropriate for that matter.
Okay. How does that make me look as an officer if I could walk up to one of my enlisted and start joking around with one of our younger, even like below us, enlisted?
Immature.
Okay. Johnson?
You're enabling it.
Okay.
It makes them feel as if they're not part of the team.
It looks unprofessional.
Okay.
It also says that you're not showing respect at your change grade.
Would this be considered a positive or negative work environment? As if I were to walk up to one of the junior enlisted and start making fun of them as well?
It would be a negative environment.
Why so?
Because then it's kind of like in a way like making fun, in a way kind of like degrades that person, and then he feels that like he's not like part of that unit anymore, and he's not really go to that officer anymore.
Okay.
In what ways could the victim have handled the situation? So what could he have done to either defend himself, or who could he go to solve this problem?
Like we said earlier, he can take himself out of the situation and just go somewhere. I don't know if there's a ship or something, there's not a lot of places you can go to just help.
He could have verbalized that he was uncomfortable with the comments and jokes that were being made.
He couldn't obviously go to his own chain of command since they're the ones making fun of him, so he could have gone to a chief or another division officer and tried to get it taken care of that way, or if he wants, he can go up to the department level, but something like that.
Anything else? So,
Just point out another resource, probably should run to the SEMIA, because you don't know what else is going on with that case.
you see a lot of verbal harassment that is sexual, so it's not all sexual in all cases. There could be racial, as long as gender harassment. But racial is just as important to look at as well as sexual and other types of harassment. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Says main key points overall. Anyone can experience verbal harassment, as is that or abuse. There is a way to defend yourself. One of the best ways to defend yourself if you're being harassed verbally is basically to walk away and try to report it. And just overall, there's no need to have harassment within the workforce. So you're working with your fellow sailors and fellow officers. It's just not necessary to have that kind of verbal harassment within the whole environment. So I was trying to put a stop to it as quickly as we can, get ahead of the problem, so we don't have to deal with it in the fleet. Thank you.
Who is Charles gonna talk to if he can't talk to senior listed? Or senior to him, period? Who's he gonna talk to? Who's he gonna talk to? Who?
His peers.
His peers, other people, other midshipmen, other whatever. What's that gonna do? Somebody else. Somebody else. What?
Gunnery Sergeant create a hostile work environment.
Okay, but it's in a different division. What else? By him going to the chow hall and telling all the people in the chow hall about the incident, what's gonna happen? What?
Spreads the word and raises awareness, Gunnery
Spreads the word, raises awareness in a bad way. Like my division's busted. I like to keep my problems in-house. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm messed up or whatever, I need to know about it so I can fix it, but I don't want you going somewhere else. And I have to create that environment where my people feel comfortable coming to me to take care of those problems. So if he can't talk to anyone else, it's gonna big full circle, and then someone else hears about it, somebody drops a message in the seals box, and then it's big and blown out. So not only are you wrong, but if you don't have an environment where people come talk to you, then it's gonna get found out real quickly by the people who you probably don't wanna know about it, and it's gonna come back to you. And secondly, does he have to be present for that to be right or wrong?
No.
Why not?
Can we get back to always?
Even if it doesn't get back to him,
It still creates a negative work environment, Gunnery Sergeant.
it's still wrong. So for you and your best friend, wherever you're at talking about it, if you're talking about those kind of things, it's bad. 'Cause if you're doing it in your off time, at work, or if you're doing it at work but around no one else, it's still wrong because it's gonna show. You can only fake the funk for so long, like I've told you so many times. You have to be yourself, and if you need to adjust yourself, that's what you need to do. But if you're doing it when you're not supposed to, eventually it's gonna bleed over, and you don't want that. So whether they're there or not, just because he feels uncomfortable now, it's still wrong, just because if he's not there. Good?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Hey, I want to add one thing to this. You have a big force working against you. Turn on your television set at any time tonight, and you will find a show that applauds what they just did in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yes,
Sir.
It's the adult cartoon shows that they have at night, it's some of the sitcoms they call them, right? Those kinds of things. What do they do but poke fun at people, right? And what do you do sitting on your couch? So then we bring you here, and what do we tell you? Hey, stop laughing, right? And what do you say? Yeah, okay. And it's yeah, okay until when? Till the captain leaves the room? Gunnery Sergeant's not there anymore? So you have to be able to police yourself on this, and the whole culture is working against you, right? Everything about our culture says this behavior is funny. I can't tell you how many times I've had a young person talk to me about something like this, and they said, I was just kidding. Couldn't you say that? I was just kidding. Does that make it okay?
Yes, sir.
Joswick probably didn't think he was just kidding. See, it's easy when you're sitting on your couch, right? Why is it easy? Because the person that you're laughing at doesn't even see you. You don't touch them, you don't feel what they feel, nothing, right? But then we put you in this situation, and it's real people, and it's real life, and it's real different, isn't it? So I want to challenge you, be careful with what you think is funny. Because just like Gunnery Sergeant said, you can only fake it for so long. If you really think that's funny, sitting on your couch at home, you probably think it's funny at work too. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. First platoon is doing a skit on physical threat. So we have Hundley and Thomas in the locker room. Spain's gonna come in and shake stuff up.
Man, my abs are sore from maxing those sit-ups.
It's only a pretty hard PRT today, huh?
Yes, thank you.
I'm kind of sore, aren't you?
Yeah, my legs are a little bit sore.
You did stretch my groin out a little bit, or?
Don't you have a meeting to go to right about now?
I don't think so.
Hey, I think you
guess you do have to go somewhere though.
Oh, do I really? Oh, you're right, I do. All right, I'll see you guys later.
Hey, so Huntley, that was the one Huntley, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of awkward, but I don't know.
I don't know, if you think it could happen to others too. I feel like we
Yeah.
should bring it up to someone.
What do you think I should do?
Bring it up to someone else, like, we should look at our options.
Okay, so given this situation, if they want to handle it within the unit, instead of just beating her up or beating him up or something, where could they go within the unit to get the situation handled? Who could they talk to?
The Simeo.
Simeo, who else?
Sapper coordinator.
All right, who else?
Chain of command.
Okay. Those are all good options. So, Sapper officer here is going to take Huntley as he comes to him with an issue.
I think I'll talk to the sapper officer. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, Midshipman Huntley. Need self-advice again?
No, sir. I had an awkward encounter in the locker room today, and I'd like to take it up.
Okay, would you like to do an unrestricted or restricted report? Here are your options, and go through that and decide what you want.
Okay, so he kind of gave it away. But what are his options when reporting the situation to the Sapper officer? And what are the differences between the two?
Unrestricted and restricted reports. Unrestricted doesn't withhold names, whereas restricted will.
Okay, what else is the difference between the two?
Unrestricted report starts an investigation, restricted report does not.
Okay. Also with a restricted report, you can choose to have more training within the unit, which is what Huntley decides to do based on the situation. So the unit has more training, and then after the training is conducted, Thomas comes forward to the Sapper officer with his own issue.
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, Mr. Thomas, what can I help you with?
As with regards to this training, I feel like I should make a report myself.
Okay, what happened?
I feel that I have been physically assaulted, sir.
And would you like to do an unrestricted report?
Yes, sir.
And are you aware that this will result in an investigation and possible consequences of being kicked out of the unit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell me what happened.
It started a little while back, and just as I've talked to a lot of people before, where it starts with a joke, and it started with Bishop and Spady, just joking around with me, making some physical comments that I just ignored. But later on, where it came to too much that I could handle, and I felt like I cornered, sir.
What happened after that?
I was physically assaulted, sir.
Okay, so with this, we're gonna have to start an investigation right away. We will keep you updated on that, and we also have other resources if you need to see a chaplain or if you need to see a corner. We have those available to you. So we will keep you in the loop on the investigation after that first.
Yes, sir.
So that's basically it. We just went through the process of what could happen in regards to the Sapper officer. I don't know if that's 100% accurate. We said in this situation that based on the previous physical harassment and assault that he was booted out of the Navy. So it can be pretty serious. But yeah. So what? Yes, sir.
So, who investigates?
NCIS, sir?
Yes. It's important that you know that. It can't be investigated in the command. In other words, it can't be a command investigation of that. It has to be the Naval Criminal Investigative Service is the one that does it. What about here on campus? What happens here on campus?
Police, sir?
ISU Police. Has to be investigated by a police force or investigative body. It can't be investigated internal to the unit.
Yes, sir. One other thing important about the skit is just that even if it's a restricted report, it can raise awareness in the unit and help other people come forward with their issues. Like the training helped him feel more comfortable talking about the fact that he was assaulted and that got the situation taken care of. It would have been better if it had been taken care of before he was assaulted, but in this situation, it still got resolved in the end. That's what we got.
Did anybody see anything questionable about how the officer handled it? Nope. What?
He didn't tell the victim that he believed him.
Okay, maybe.
That's important.
That is very important. What else? Repeat what you said. Did you read it or did you just say it?
I just said it, sir.
Are you aware that this is gonna cause us to do an investigation, and we gotta do this paperwork, gotta do all this crap that you gotta make sure when you phrase something, are you aware of your options? that keeps it open. If you give them a leading question, I've been known to do that a few times, not even thinking, oh, I gotta go do this, and I'm really just kidding, but he may be like, oh, he doesn't want to do his paperwork or whatever. So if you say, are you aware that this is gonna lead to an investigation, outside people coming in, we're gonna have more training, all this other stuff, are you aware that's what it's gonna be? Yes, sir. All right, here we go. Then it sounds like you're being hesitant, you don't want to support them. So are you aware of your options? Yes or no? Keep it a very unbiased. I'm looking for the right word. So keep it unbiased and make sure you're not trying to influence their decision based off your mannerisms or your body language indirectly, and make sure they feel comfortable. So, okay, if you came to me, hopefully you say you believe me, but that's a good point. Okay, I believe you. If you have to be that honest, okay, you sit down. I got so many things going on right now. So you want to stop what you're doing. If someone walks in my office and I'm on my computer and I'm doing blah, 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 doing this stuff, someone's going to start, I need to talk to you. If I don't stop what I'm doing on the computer, put my stuff down and look at you and we talk, then you're not going to believe that I have fully invested in what your problem is. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And the caveat to that is, like when we do counselings, whatever, I do apologize when we do counselings. When I did counselings as a class advisor, is look, I'm typing this so you don't have to come back to me, but as we're talking, I'm going to type and we're going to do what we can. So when someone comes in with a problem and they need to talk, stop what you're doing, give them your undivided attention, because I promise you that's how important it is to them, especially if they come in unannounced to your office. Good?
Yes, sir, Sergeant.
Okay, some other oddities or things that aren't quite right. So who can you report a sexual assault to? And it'd be a restricted report.
Chaplain, sir?
Yeah, yes, but not for the reason associated with the SAPR program. You can do that because they have confidentiality, much like a physician does. But who are the main people that you can report a sexual assault to, a restricted report? Yeah.
SARC, sir.
The SARC, okay? We don't have one, all right? Ours is in Bremerton, Washington, all right? It's a long way away from here, all right? Who else? That's Mr. Klusner.
Victim advocate,
Victim advocate, yes. Who else? Yes, Mr. Klusner is passing, flying colors. Yes.
Designated health personnel, sir.
Okay, yeah, exactly. If you go to a medical facility, if you talk to someone at a medical facility, you can do that as well. You have to do the right person. If you talk to our representative, Mr. Pfaff, it is not a restricted report. It's an unrestricted report as soon as you tell him that. So what should you do, especially our active duty folks, this applies to you. Midshipmen, you can talk to any of them because you don't fall under this umbrella as a midshipman. But when you're on active duty as a midshipman, you do. And ultimately, as an officer, you will. You have to make sure you contact the victim advocate. We have phone numbers for you to call. You can call the SARC, although they're not in our local area. Victim advocate's not in our local area either. You can call both of those, or you tell a medical professional, and all of those will keep it a restricted report. If you tell anyone else, it's going to be an unrestricted report. If a report is unrestricted, can it ever be made restricted?
No, sir.
What about the other way around?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole intent. As they feel more comfortable, then they can shift from a restricted report to an unrestricted report if they choose to do that. Why do we spend so much time on this? Mr. Cronrad?
It's a big deal in the Navy, sir.
Yeah. Has anybody ever been sexually assaulted in this room? You don't have to put your hand up. But if you've ever been sexually assaulted, think about that for just a second. Think of the trauma of being sexually assaulted. For all of you guys, think about being gang raped by somebody. You think you'd like that? Yeah, you're pretty. And would you feel like telling all your buddies, hey, by the way, this weekend I got gang raped by a bunch of guys? That'd go over real good, wouldn't it? Start thinking about how you'd feel about that. Now you know why we spend so much time on it. It changes your life forever. That's the way you need to think about it. Anybody that ever comes and tells you something like this. You need to think about, what would it feel like if I got violated like that? All right? And then you'll know why we spend so much time on it. Because if it ever happened to you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if it hasn't happened to you, hopefully what I just gave you will help you understand the magnitude of this. When you're violated, it's big. It's huge. It changes who you are and how you work every day. How are you going to work after that? Carefully, that's for sure, especially if that person's around, right? or that group of people are around, you're gonna work much differently, aren't you? You have to take that view of this. If you take that view of this, you will be very caring to anybody that reports a sexual assault. If you don't, you'll blow this off and you'll go, oh, no big deal, okay? And move on to the next thing. That would be the worst thing that you can do. Talk about a bad command climate. That will create one.
Sir, if I'm on active duty and I catch wind of it or hear about it or
Yeah.
someone reports to me, am I obligated to tell somebody?
I would say yes, you are obligated. Okay, it's a part of the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, that you are to report all offenses. All right? So if you know of offense and don't report it, you violated the Uniform Code. And you actually can be brought up on charges.
That's it, right? 3 platoons? Yes. All right, so they went in reverse order, so we'll go 3, 2, 1. If you think 3rd platoon was best, stand up. We're voting. All right. Nobody? All right. 2nd platoon, if you think 2nd platoon was best, stand up.
Everybody's looking around, right?
2nd platoon. 1, 2, sit down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Anybody in the back? Hands up. 10. And then 1st platoon, the last one. Good, sit down. Why was that one better? What?
I felt it was the most well-presented one, and they went several different avenues with it. They continued to play along with the story, and it wasn't just like a 1-minute skit.
All right, what else?
More interactive there, sorry?
All right, what else?
I felt like they covered more topics.
A couple more topics, different angles, so many different things. After it was, okay, here's the problem, here's the solution, and then the follow-up of how the officer handled it, and there's so many different viewpoints, so, good job.
Can I ask you a question?
What?
You were commenting on how the officer informed him about the unrestricted report.
Right.
So, would you inform the person reporting to you the magnitude of an unrestricted report? Would you tell them that there'd be legal action?
Right, so with that being said, right, there's what he was talking about is the way you present it, right? So if you present it as, all right, you know what this is gonna do to the command, right? We're gonna have all these outside entities come in. I mean, this is from a ship point of view, strictly ship point, right? We're gonna have all these people come in, you know, the captain's gonna get told, hey, you're not running your ship right because you got things going on. NCIS is gonna come on board, you know, a bunch of people are gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions. You'll have to stand up in front and talk to people. You'll have to go to the because, you know, Lord knows the president made such a big deal of this. Now we got all these court hearings and everything else you're gonna have to go to. I mean, do you really want to do all that, or is this what you want, right? So presenting it like that is a problem, right? Because what you're telling that other person is, hey, this is a lot of work, and not only did you just have this happen to you, but now we're gonna make you relive it a whole bunch, and I don't really sound all that interested in it anyway. So that was the issue they had with it. Go ahead.
My question is, what would be a tactful way to present?
A tactful way to do that is to be like, listen, right, so there's unrestricted reports and restricted reports, and you just list what happens, right? And you say, whatever you feel comfortable with doing is the avenue and the route that we're gonna take. You have full support of the command, you're gonna have full support of the captain either way. Obviously, if it's a restricted report, the captain's not gonna know what happened.
But really, this is the reason that we only have it reported to those 3 people that I talked about.
Yep.
Victim advocates are trained to know exactly what to say to a victim. SARC is trained to know exactly what to say to a victim. And a medical provider is trained to know exactly what to talk about to a victim. So if it goes to those people, no trouble. When it's an unrestricted report, let's say somebody comes and talks to Mr. Pfaff. Mr. Pfaff should say, I appreciate you telling me this. I'll start the process of the investigation. That's the best way to handle it. We'll start the process of the investigation. Let me assign you a victim advocate. That's the next thing. Because Mr. Pfaff and none of you have the experience to know how to talk to that victim. And you can re-victimize somebody by just asking them a few questions, if you're not careful. That's why everybody gets a victim advocate. They can use the victim advocate if they like, and they can choose not to if they don't want to use the victim advocate. If you're here at the university and it happens, we send you over to the Access, right? Access has victim advocates. And they talk to you about it. They're basically just there to be your ally, and it keeps this kind of situation, what Mr. Pfaff was just illustrating, from happening. So if you assign a victim advocate, give the person a victim advocate, that's the person that does all the liaison. When an NCIS agent wants to talk to them, the victim advocate is there available to the person. When there's another step, they have to go to court-martial or something like that, the victim advocate is there to help them with that. So those people are specifically trained to do that job, and that's why we have them. And everybody that reports a sexual assault gets assigned a victim advocate.
Sir?
Yes?
What if you were to say your spouse was a victim? Would you still be under the UCMJ?
Yes.
Or would you?
Yes. By the way, you can rape your spouse, okay? If your spouse does not consent to sex, it's a rape, right? So if your spouse reports, and just because you're married doesn't mean it's not a sexual assault, right? Did that get to your question though?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now you have a spouse. What are you going to do? This is a difficult situation, and it's actually happened to me a couple of times. What if you have the spouse of somebody at your command report a sexual assault? Now what else do you have to think about? Some other things are going through your mind.
Military protective order.
Military protective order. What's that mean? That's like a restraining order. It keeps people apart from one another. A commanding officer can tell a person, you can't go within 100 yards or 100 feet of this person. And you write that down, and the person can do that. And if they do violate it, then they violated a lawful order. So there's lots of things that you have to think about based on what the circumstances of the assault might be. And one of them is, sometimes you have to separate people that would normally be together, like a husband and wife, right? Yeah.
So I don't know if this is what he was asking, but maybe, what if you know of your spouse having been sexually assaulted or raped? Do you, knowing if you're both in the military, is there not like a kind of a trust thing where you aren't required to kind of report that on your spouse?
So your concern, give me your concern part of that.
So, am I required to report?
You know your spouse has been sexually assaulted. Maybe you've talked about it privately and found out that she was sexually assaulted by someone
Yes, sir. Are you
previously.
still a mandatory reporting entity?
In that case, I would say no, you're not. It's not mandatory that you report in that case. If it happened,
You said they were both active?
both active duty?
Yes.
It depends on how much detail you know, but if you knew the person that did it and those kinds of things, I would say you should report that. But if it's just, you have a discussion and she says, hey, I was sexually assaulted back when I worked at such and such a place, and you don't go into any more detail, you really don't have enough information to go forward. But what I would do is I would encourage her to make the report. And this happens on many occasions. Another one that's a good example of this is someone that was raped when they were a child or molested when they were a child, right? And they haven't reported it to anybody yet. What if you find out about that? What should you do? How can you care for that person, Mr. and Mrs. Future Division Officer? How are you going to care for that person? They finally feel confident enough to say something about it. They say it to you. What do? I know Mr. Skyberg probably knows. I know you know. Yes, Ms. King.
Get them counseling, sir.
Okay, yeah, you might encourage them to talk to. Maybe even you get them a victim advocate. That's okay to do. But yeah, absolutely, give them a chance to talk to somebody. The more confidence that they build, you have to give them the opportunity to talk about this. Don't force them, hey, you need to report this. That's not the way to do it. Walk them through it, show them that you care about it, and let them come to the conclusion. That's what I would do with this wife as well, in a situation like that. These are very delicate situations, folks. These are things that you're going to get into from time to time as you become a division officer. I'm sure all the active duty folks have seen something along this line in their careers. Right? That's the way people are. Right? And many of these things people keep very private. You can imagine most people are not talking about their sex life openly. All right? Unless they have great bravado about what they did last weekend or something like that. Okay, that's usually myth and legend and lore, those kinds of things. Okay, I'm talking about things like really what happened in your life. Most people don't talk about their sex life because it's private. And if they feel confident enough to you, come talk to you about it, you need to be ready to help them deal with it, especially if it's something like this. What other things? By the way, this is a great way to do business, all right? All the skits, no matter whether they're very detailed or not, they bring out questions and they foster discussion that is tremendously important. In my early days in the Navy, I had nothing like this. Nothing. By the time I was a Chief Petty Officer in the Navy, I had gotten no training like this whatsoever. And when I became a Chief Petty Officer, I went to the Equal Opportunity School down at Patrick Air Force Base, and I got the aha moment, you know? I got the, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out there that I didn't know anything about. And I had lived on a submarine, kind of in a, you know, small environment, and I just had been mostly males. You know, I really didn't interact with females in the Navy very much at all. And boy, my eyes got open when I went to the school and I found out about all the discrimination that goes on, and religious discrimination, racial discrimination, people discriminating because you're a different ethnic group. I mean, all these different things, and then all the things about sexual behavior of people. I was like, holy cow, this is a hard job to do. And that was as a Chief Petty Officer. By the time I got to be a commanding officer, and I learned of all the things that folks on my ship had done or did or were doing, it was eye-opening, folks. I'm telling you, having discussions like this prepares you well for what you're going to do in the future as leaders in the Navy. If you use this stuff, you're going to be very effective as division officers versus the person that kind of goes in there with their eyes closed thinking, oh, this is great. I love being in charge, all right? Yeah, and you'll love being in charge when the poop hits the fan, okay? It's not as great as you think it is. All right, questions, comments? Okay, thanks for letting me sit in.
Jason on deck.
Hey, carry on.
Dismissed. Hey, hold on, let me say something quick. All right, so sorry to keep you longer. Not many people know, I guess no one knows, but I went through the DoD certification for SAPR. The program started 3 years ago. Navy used to have to run their own show, and then you went to the 40-hour school through the DoD, so now all the certs are on the same. So if you have any questions about any of this, but I do want to clarify one thing because I think it's important. Active duty to active duty, if you overhear that whole thing we were talking about, it's fine. You don't have to report it because it was told in confidence. That's in the instructions. However, if you're in the same chain of command and you hear it, then you have to report it. Got it? So I've been to court, I've sat outside medical rooms for 8 hours waiting on my person to get their exam. It's no fun. But if you want to hear about it, I'll tell you about it. So, that's it.
Dismissed. I mean, first platoon for